The rain hammered against the kitchen window of Romano's, each drop a tiny fist demanding entrance. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching the street below blur into watercolor grays and blacks. My reflection stared back, hollow eyes, hair escaping its bun in damp tendrils. The uniform that had once been crisp now wrinkled after 14 hours of double shifts. "Table 7 needs water," Marco barked from behind me. I nodded without turning, my bones singing their exhaustion. 3 jobs. 3 different worlds I inhabited like a ghost, slipping between them with nothing but determination and desperation holding me upright. The diner at dawn, the cleaning service in the afternoon, and now this. Romano's, where the wealthy came to pretend they understood authentic Italian cuisine. My fingers trembled as I filled the water pitcher. The rent was due in 3 days. Mrs. Chen had been patient, but patience wore thin when you were 2 months behind. The eviction notice felt like a brand against my hip, folded in my apron pocket, a constant reminder that I was failing at the most basic human need: shelter. "Move faster, Ilara," Marco snapped. "This isn't a charity." If only he knew how desperately I wished it were. I pushed through the kitchen doors, the pitcher heavy in my aching hands. The dining room existed in a different dimension. Soft jazz, the clink of expensive silverware, laughter that came easy when your stomach was never empty. Crystal chandeliers cast everything in warm amber, making the patrons look softer, kinder than they probably were. Table 7 sat in the corner, partially hidden by a decorative screen. I approached with my practiced smile, the one that never reached my eyes anymore. "Your water, sir." The words died in my throat. He sat alone, though the table was set for 4. Dark suit, tailored so perfectly it seemed painted onto his frame. Black hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings. Sharp jaw, straight nose, lips that suggested cruelty and beauty in equal measure, but it was his eyes that stopped my heart. Gray, like smoke, like storm clouds, like the barrel of a gun, they lifted to mine, and the world tilted. "Thank you," he said, his voice carrying an accent I couldn't place. Something European, refined, dangerous. I poured, hyper-aware of how close my hand was to his, how the water caught the light like liquid diamonds, how my uniform suddenly felt threadbare and cheap. A drop splashed onto the pristine white tablecloth, and I froze. "I'm so sorry, It's nothing." His hand moved, a gesture so slight it barely registered. Yet it silenced me completely. "What's your name?" "Ilara." My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Ilara." He repeated it slowly, tasting each syllable. "You look tired, Ilara." Heat flooded my cheeks. Of course I looked tired. I was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of working myself to dust for pennies. Tired of pretending I wasn't drowning. "I'm fine," I lied, the automatic response. His lips curved, not quite a smile. "Liar." Before I could respond, the kitchen doors burst open. Marco emerged with 2 other servers, carrying covered dishes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They moved toward table 7 with reverence, with fear, and I suddenly realized everyone in the restaurant had shifted. The conversations had lowered. Eyes darted toward our corner, then quickly away. "Mr. Constantine," Marco said, his voice pitched higher than usual. "Your guests have arrived." I stepped back, but not quickly enough. 3 men materialized from the entrance, all broad shoulders and concealed weapons, their suits failing to hide the predatory way they moved. They flanked a 4th man, older, with silver threading through his temples and eyes like chips of ice. "Excuse me," I whispered, turning to flee. "Wait." That single word, spoken softly, nailed my feet to the floor. I looked back. The gray-eyed man, Mr. Constantine, hadn't raised his voice, hadn't moved, but every person in the vicinity had responded as if he'd shouted. Even Marco had paled. "Yes, sir?" My heart rabbited against my ribs. "You'll be serving our table tonight," not a question, a decree. "Of course," Marco answered for me, practically shoving me forward. "Ilara is our best server." That was a lie. I'd been working here 3 weeks, still fumbling with the menu, still intimidated by the prices. But Marco's eyes pleaded with me not to contradict him, and something in the air felt charged, dangerous, like the moment before lightning strikes. The evening blurred into a surreal nightmare. I served course after course, antipasti, primi, secondi, while the 4 men conducted business in low voices, sometimes English, sometimes what sounded like Russian, occasionally Italian. I caught fragments, names I didn't recognize, numbers that made my head spin, references to shipments and territories and consequences. Through it all, those gray eyes tracked me. When I poured wine, when I cleared plates, when I stood against the wall waiting for the next summons. It felt like being studied by a wolf, deciding whether you were prey or something else entirely. "The lamb is excellent," the older man said, his accent thicker than Constantine's. "Your establishment has outdone itself, Marco." Marco beamed from near the kitchen, relief evident in every line of his body. "Ilara," Constantine said, and my name in his mouth felt intimate, forbidden. "More wine." I approached with the bottle, my hand steadier now despite my exhaustion. Perhaps I'd moved beyond fear into numbness. I reached between him and the silver-haired man, tipping the bottle carefully. That's when it happened. The older man shifted, his elbow connecting with my wrist. The bottle tilted, and before I could correct it, red wine cascaded across the pristine white tablecloth, across papers I hadn't noticed spread beside his plate, across what looked like blueprints or maps. Time stopped. The restaurant fell silent. Even the jazz seemed to pause, the pianist's fingers hovering above keys. "I'm sorry," I gasped, grabbing napkins, trying desperately to blot the spreading crimson stain. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean—" The older man stood abruptly, his chair scraping loud in the silence. His face had transformed into something ugly, violent, clumsy little— "Dmitri." One word from Constantine, soft as silk, sharp as a blade. Dmitri's mouth snapped shut, but his eyes promised retribution. I kept dabbing uselessly at the wine, my vision blurring with tears I refused to shed. This job. I'd just lost this job, and probably worse. These men didn't look like the type to forgive accidents. The papers beneath the wine had bled, ink running, whatever information they contained, now ruined. "I'll pay for the damage," I said, though I had no idea how. "I'll work for free, Look at me." I raised my eyes to Constantine's. He'd leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, while chaos swirled around us. One of his men had moved closer, hand inside his jacket. Marco had rushed over, apologizing profusely, promising I'd be fired, offering complimentary meals for a month. But Constantine only looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Your last name," he said quietly. "What is it?" Of all the questions I'd expected, that wasn't one. "Volkov. Ilara Volkov." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Recognition? It vanished before I could identify it, replaced by something darker, more intense. "Volkov," he repeated, and the way he said it made the hair on my arm stand up. The silver-haired man, Dmitri, had gone very still. The other men at the table exchanged glances laden with meaning I couldn't decipher. "Russian?" Constantine asked, though it sounded like he already knew the answer. "My father was." Past tense, because he disappeared when I was 5, leaving my mother and me with nothing but his surname and debts that had taken years to clear. "I never knew him." "Interesting." Constantine stood in one fluid motion, and I stumbled backward. He was taller than I'd realized, broader, and he carried violence in the way he moved despite the expensive suit and cultured voice. "Marco, the girl is coming with me." The world tilted again, harder this time. "What?" I managed. "No, I have to finish my shift. I can't—" "You can." He pulled out a wallet, extracted several bills without counting, and dropped them on the table. Hundreds, maybe thousands. "For the inconvenience. Mr. Constantine, that's very generous, but—" Marco started. "The girl," Constantine repeated, and this time there was steel beneath the silk. "Now." Dmitri smiled, and it was the smile of a shark. "Should I have the car brought around?" "Yes." Constantine's attention never left me. "Ilara Volkov." "You wanted to leave earlier, didn't you? I heard you talking to yourself by the window." "I just want to leave," you said. My blood turned to ice. He'd been watching me even then, before I'd noticed him. I meant my shift, I whispered. Not like this. Nevertheless, he extended his hand, and it wasn't a request. You're leaving. With me. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. Marco looked torn between relief and concern. The other diners had returned to their meals, but their attention remained fixed on our corner, waiting to see what would happen to the clumsy server who'd ruined the dangerous man's evening. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Constantine's smile could have cut glass. Because your last name just made you the most valuable person in this restaurant. And because, Ilara Volkov, I don't believe in coincidences. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. Your father stole something very precious from me, and now, after all these years, his daughter walks into my territory, spills wine on my associate's documents, and expects to simply leave? His laugh was soft, almost gentle, which made it infinitely more terrifying. Oh, sweet girl, you're not going anywhere. The car smelled of leather and something darker. Gunpowder, maybe. Or the metallic tang of fear that had seeped into the upholstery over time. I sat pressed against the door, as far from Constantine as the back seat would allow, my fingers gripping the handle though I knew it wouldn't open. Child locks, probably, or something more sophisticated in a vehicle like this. The windows were tinted so dark, the city lights barely penetrated, turning Chicago into a ghost of itself. Rain still fell, drumming against the roof like fingernails. And somewhere in the front seat, a man I couldn't see clearly drove us deeper into the night. Where are you taking me? My voice cracked, betraying the terror I was trying to contain. Constantine sat perfectly still, one arm draped along the back of the seat, not touching me but close enough that I felt the heat of him. He'd removed his jacket, revealing a white shirt that probably cost more than my car, if I still had a car. I'd sold it 2 months ago to pay for my mother's medication. Somewhere safe, he said. Safe, I laughed, and it came out broken. You just kidnapped me from my job. Kidnapping implies you had a choice. You didn't. He turned his head, those storm-gray eyes finding mine in the darkness. The moment Dmitri saw your name, you became a liability, or an asset, depending on perspective. Would you prefer I'd left you there for him to handle? The image of Dmitri's shark smile flashed through my mind. I shuddered. What did my father steal? The question burned in my throat. I told you I never knew him. He left when I was 5. Whatever he did, it has nothing to do with me, doesn't it? Constantine's fingers drummed once against the leather, a soft rhythm that somehow felt threatening. Blood debt doesn't evaporate with absence, Ilara. Your father took something irreplaceable from my family. Money, yes, millions. But more than that. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. He took my brother's life. The words hung in the air like smoke, choking me. No, I whispered. My father wasn't... He couldn't have... Your father, Constantine interrupted, his voice never rising yet somehow filling every inch of the car, was Alexei Volkov, one of the best forgers in the Russian underworld. He came to America promising loyalty, promising his skills to our organization. Instead, he created documents that sent my younger brother into a trap. Sergei was 19 years old when they found him in the warehouse. 19. Each word landed like a blow. I tried to process it. My father, a criminal, a murderer, the man whose eyes I'd inherited, whose surname I carried like a curse I hadn't known I was under. I'm sorry, I managed. I'm so sorry, but I didn't know. I've been alone since my mother died last year. I have nothing, no family, no connections to any of that world. You have his blood. Constantine leaned forward slightly, studying my face with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His eyes. That particular shade of green, almost amber in certain light. I remember them from the last time I saw him, before he vanished like the coward he was. The car turned, pulling into what looked like an underground garage. Concrete pillars rose from the darkness, and security cameras tracked our progress with red, unblinking eyes. Please, I said, hating the desperation in my voice. I have rent due. I have bills. I can't just disappear. People will notice. What people? The question was almost gentle, which made it cruel. You work 3 jobs where you're invisible. You told the dishwasher at Romano's that you hadn't spoken to anyone outside of work in months. You have no family, no friends, no one who would miss you for at least a week. I know, Alara. I've known everything about you since you walked into my restaurant. Ice spread through my veins. You've been watching me? Not me personally, but yes. The car stopped, and the driver, a broad-shouldered silhouette, stepped out and opened Constantine's door. I own Romano's. I own the building where you clean offices. I own a significant share in the diner where you serve breakfast to truckers who don't leave tips. He stepped out, then leaned back in, extending his hand. You've been working in my territory for 6 months. Did you really think I wouldn't notice Alexei Volkov's daughter? My mind reeled. 6 months. He'd known for 6 months and done nothing. Until tonight. Until I'd spilled wine on documents that probably detailed illegal activities I couldn't begin to imagine. I won't tell anyone what I saw, I said quickly. The papers, the conversation. I didn't understand any of it anyway. Please, just let me go. I'll leave Chicago. You'll never see me again. Constantine's expression shifted. Something dark and possessive flickering across his features. Get out of the car, Alara. No. His eyebrows rose slightly, as if surprised I'd dared to refuse. No, I repeated, stronger now despite my shaking hands. You can't keep me here. This is America, not wherever you're from. You can't just steal people, can't I? He withdrew his hand. Yuri, help Miss Volkov from the vehicle. The driver appeared at my door, opening it before I could lock it. He was massive, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw, and eyes that held all the warmth of winter in Siberia. Don't touch me, I warned, pressing harder against the opposite door. Yuri reached in, and I did the only thing I could think of. I kicked. My shoe connected with his chest, and he grunted, more surprised than hurt. But it gave me enough time to scramble across the seat, toward Constantine's open door, toward freedom. I almost made it. Constantine caught me around the waist, pulling me against him with one arm while I struggled. He was solid as stone, immovable, and when I tried to elbow him, he simply tightened his grip until I couldn't breathe properly. Stop, he commanded, his breath warm against my ear. You'll hurt yourself. Let me go. I twisted, managed to get one arm free, and swung blindly. My fist connected with something, his shoulder maybe, and pain exploded through my knuckles. He sighed, a sound of infinite patience, and adjusted his hold. Suddenly, I was cradled against his chest, my struggles useless against his strength. He carried me like I weighed nothing, striding across the garage toward an elevator that opened as we approached. Put me down, I demanded, but the fight was draining out of me. Exhaustion, terror, and the surreal horror of my situation pressed down like a physical weight. Soon. He stepped into the elevator, and Yuri followed, pressing a button marked P, penthouse. Of course. The elevator rose smoothly, and I sagged in Constantine's arms, too tired to maintain my resistance. Through his shirt, I could feel his heartbeat, steady, calm, utterly unaffected by my panic. Are you going to kill me? I asked quietly. His arms tightened fractionally. No. Then what? That depends. The elevator doors opened, revealing a hallway that belonged in an architectural magazine, all dark wood and subtle lighting. Artwork that was probably worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. On you, primarily. He carried me through double doors into a space that stole what remained of my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, Chicago spreading out like scattered jewels against black velvet. The furniture was minimal, but clearly expensive. Dark leather, chrome, glass, everything sharp angles and cold surfaces. He set me down on a sofa, and I immediately stood, putting distance between us. Sit, he said. No, that almost smile again. You're very defiant for someone in your position. My position? Anger flared, burning through the fear. You mean kidnapped? Held against my will by a man claiming my dead father owes him a blood debt? Yes, that position. He moved to a bar cart, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. Sit down, Alara. We have much to discuss, and you look ready to collapse. He wasn't wrong. My legs trembled, threatening to give out. But I remained standing, chin lifted, refusing to show more weakness than I already had. Constantine crossed to me, holding out a glass. It's whiskey. Very expensive. It won't hurt you. Like I'd drink anything you gave me, poisoning you would be counterproductive. He took a sip from the other glass, then switched them, offering me his. Better. I stared at the whiskey, at his long fingers wrapped around the crystal, at the silver ring on his right hand engraved with symbols I didn't recognize. Everything about him screamed danger, yet something in his expression had softened, just slightly. Why am I here? I asked instead of taking the glass. Really, if you've known about me for months, why take me now? Because Dmitri saw your name. He set both glasses on a side table. Dmitri is old guard, traditional. He believes in blood for blood, an eye for an eye. When he realized who you were, I had perhaps 30 seconds to claim you before he would have. And Dmitri's methods are, he paused, selecting his words carefully, less civilized than mine. Claim me. The words tasted bitter, like property, like protection. He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. Your father's debt is real, Alara. In my world, debts pass through bloodlines. You are all that remains of Alexei Volkov. Which means you inherit his obligations. That's insane. That's reality. Another step. We were close enough now that I could see the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive, but I'm not an unreasonable man. I don't punish daughters for their father's sins. Hope flickered, tiny and fragile. Then let me go. I said I don't punish. I didn't say I'd release you. His hand rose, and I flinched. But he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers barely grazing my skin. The touch sent electricity down my spine. You're safe here, Ilara, safer than you've been in years. No more triple shifts. No more eviction notices. No more struggling alone. In exchange for what? My voice came out barely above a whisper. His smile was slow, dangerous, beautiful. In exchange, you stay. You let me keep you safe from Dmitri and others who would use you to settle old scores. You accept that? For now, you belong to me. The words should have terrified me. They did terrify me. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Something I didn't want to examine too closely. When was the last time anyone had wanted to keep me safe? When had anyone cared if I struggled or suffered? And if I refuse? Constantine's expression hardened. Then I let you walk out that door. And by morning, you'll be dead. Dmitri won't rest until Alexei Volkov's bloodline ends. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Is that what you want? To die for your father's crimes? Because I can protect you, Ilara, but only if you're mine. The possessiveness in that last word should have sent me running. Instead, I stood frozen, caught in his gaze, caught in the impossible choice between unknown danger outside and captivity within. I just want to leave, I said softly, echoing my earlier words by the window. Constantine laughed, low and dark. I know, sweet girl, but leaving isn't an option anymore. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, disoriented and tangled in sheets that felt like silk against my skin. For one blissful moment, I thought I'd dreamed it all, the restaurant, the wine. Constantine's gray eyes promising beautiful, terrible things. Then I saw the clothes folded on the chair beside the bed, designer labels I recognized from magazine covers, a note in sharp, angular handwriting. Wear these. Breakfast at 9. Don't try the doors. They're locked from the outside. Reality crashed back, stealing my breath. I was a prisoner in a gilded cage. The bedroom was larger than my entire apartment had been, decorated in shades of cream and gray. Abstract art hung on the walls, and through the windows, Chicago gleamed in morning light. I could see Lake Michigan in the distance, boats cutting white trails across blue water. Beautiful. All of it so beautiful it hurt. My phone was gone. My uniform, my shoes, everything I'd worn last night had vanished. Only the designer clothes remained. Tailored pants, a cashmere sweater in deep burgundy, undergarments still wrapped in tissue paper. Even my size was correct. He's known everything about you for 6 months. I dressed mechanically, my hands shaking. The clothes fit perfectly, hugging curves I usually hid beneath baggy uniforms and clearance rack bargains. The woman in the mirror looked expensive, polished, nothing like the exhausted server who'd spilled wine 12 hours ago. I tried the bedroom door. Locked, as promised. The windows didn't open. I was 3 stories up anyway, judging by the view. Even if I could break the glass, there was nowhere to go but down. At exactly 9 o'clock, the lock clicked. Yuri stood in the doorway, his scarred face impassive. "Mr. Constantine is waiting." I considered refusing, staying in the room, staging some small rebellion, but my stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, and curiosity gnawed at me. What did a Mafia boss eat for breakfast? What did he want from me now? I followed Yuri through the penthouse, registering details I'd missed in last night's panic. Security cameras in every corner, bulletproof glass. Doors that required keycards or biometric scans. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. We entered a dining room dominated by a table that could seat 12. Constantine sat at the head, reading a tablet, coffee steaming beside him. He'd traded last night's suit for dark slacks and a gray shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle. A shoulder holster broke the civilized illusion, the gun handle visible against his ribs. He looked up as I entered, and something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe, at seeing me in the clothes he'd chosen. "Good morning, Ilara. I trust you slept well?" "Like a kidnap victim," I said flatly. His lips twitched. "Sit. You need to eat." The table was laden with food, eggs, pastries, fresh fruit, smoked salmon, cheeses I couldn't name. Enough for 10 people, prepared by staff I hadn't seen or heard. Ghosts serving a ghost. I sat as far from him as possible, at the opposite end of the table. Constantine sighed. "That's unnecessary. I won't bite. Forgive me for not trusting you. I don't ask for trust. I ask for pragmatism." He stood, taking his coffee and plate, and moved to sit beside me instead, close enough that his knee brushed mine beneath the table. "You're here. You're safe. You're wearing clothes that cost more than a month's rent. The situation could be considerably worse." Could it? I grabbed a croissant, tearing it apart more violently than necessary. "I'm locked in a penthouse by a man who thinks he owns me because of something my father did before I could even read." "I don't think I own you." He leaned back, studying me with that unnerving intensity. "I'm simply stating facts. In my world, you're mine until the debt is settled. How we handle that reality is up to you." I bit into the croissant, forcing myself to chew, to swallow past the lump in my throat. It tasted like heaven, buttery and perfect, and I hated that something so small could bring me pleasure in this nightmare. "What do you want from me?" I asked quietly. "Many things." He sipped his coffee, deliberate, measured. "First, information. Tell me about Alexei. What do you remember?" "Nothing useful. I was 5 when he left." The old pain stirred. Dull now, but never quite gone. "My mother said he had business overseas. She kept expecting him to come back. He never did." "No messages? No contact at all?" "Nothing. We struggled for years. My mother worked herself sick trying to keep us afloat." Bitterness crept into my voice. "Whatever debt he owed you, he paid it with her life. The stress destroyed her. Cancer took the rest." Constantine's expression remained neutral, but something shifted behind his eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss. Are you?" I set down the croissant, appetite gone. "Because it seems like you're continuing his legacy of destruction." "I'm keeping you alive." His voice hardened. "Dmitri has connections throughout the city. He's already sent inquiries trying to locate you. If he discovers you're under my protection, he'll challenge it. If he finds you unprotected," he didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy between us. "So I'm bait." "No, you're leverage." He reached out, fingers grazing my wrist where my pulse hammered visibly. "And you're under my protection, which means anyone who touches you answers to me." And the possessiveness in his tone sent conflicting signals through my body. Fear, and something dangerously close to excitement. I jerked my hand away. "I didn't ask for your protection. You didn't have to." He stood abruptly, moving to the windows. Morning light carved his profile in gold and shadow, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. Alexei's betrayal cost me more than money or even my brother. It cost me trust, reputation, standing within the organization. For 15 years, I've searched for him. For 15 years, I've owed a blood debt I couldn't collect. He turned, pinning me with those storm-gray eyes. And then you walked into my restaurant wearing his face, carrying his name. Do you understand what that means to me? I shook my head, afraid to speak. It means fate handed me exactly what I needed. He crossed back to me, each step deliberate, predatory. Dmitri wants you dead. Others in the organization see you as a loose end, a witness who could talk. But I see something different. He crouched beside my chair, bringing us eye level. This close, I could see flecks of silver in his irises, could smell coffee and that woody cologne, could feel the heat radiating from his body. I see a woman who's been invisible her entire life, working herself to death, expecting nothing, asking for nothing. A woman who's stronger than she knows. His hand rose slowly, giving me time to pull away, and cupped my cheek. A woman who could be so much more than a server in a restaurant she'll never afford to eat in. What are you saying? My voice trembled. I'm saying stay, not as a prisoner, but as, he paused, selecting words carefully. As someone under my care, let me give you the life your father's crimes stole from you. Safety. Comfort. Protection. In exchange for what? I asked again. Because nothing came free in this world. His thumb traced my lower lip, feather light, and my breath caught. In exchange, you don't run. You don't fight me. You accept that for now, your life is intertwined with mine. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. He stood, breaking the moment, and I could breathe again. I have business to attend to. Yuri will stay with you. If you need anything, ask him. What I need is to leave. Konstantin's expression hardened. That's the one thing I can't give you. Not yet. He left, and the silence he left behind felt crushing. I stared at my untouched breakfast, at the luxury surrounding me, at the cage I couldn't see but felt in every locked door, every watchful camera. 3 days passed in surreal monotony. I woke to clothes selected by invisible hands, ate meals prepared by ghosts, read books from Konstantin's extensive library, Russian literature mostly, heavy with tragedy and doomed romance. The irony wasn't lost on me. Konstantin appeared sporadically. Breakfast one morning, lunch the next, dinner when business allowed. We talked, carefully circling each other like wary animals. He asked about my mother, my childhood, the jobs I'd worked. I asked about his organization, his business, the world I'd stumbled into. He answered some questions, deflected others, and through it all, those gray eyes studied me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. On the 4th night, everything changed. I woke to voices, angry, urgent, speaking rapid Russian. Light sliced under my bedroom door. I grabbed the robe draped over the chair and crept closer, pressing my ear to the wood. Cannot keep her here indefinitely. A voice I didn't recognize. I can do whatever I want. Konstantin, cold as winter. She's mine. Dmitri is demanding a meeting. He knows she's here. Silence, taut as a wire. Let him demand. I don't answer to Dmitri. You answer to the council. They're asking questions, Alexei. About the girl, about your intentions. My intentions are my own. Footsteps approached, and I scrambled back to bed, heart racing. The door opened, and Konstantin stood silhouetted against the hallway light. I know you're awake, he said quietly. I sat up slowly. Who's the council? He entered, closing the door behind him. In the darkness, he was all shadows and danger, the gun at his hip catching ambient light. The governing body of our organization. 12 men who decide matters of territory, blood debt, and succession, and they want me dead. Some do. He moved to the windows, staring out at the sleeping city. Others see opportunity. A few want to use you against me. Why would they? Understanding dawned, cold and certain. Because you're protecting me. Because it makes you look weak. Protecting what's mine doesn't make me weak. He turned, and even in darkness, I felt the weight of his gaze. It makes me dangerous. I'm not yours, I whispered. but the words lacked conviction. He crossed to the bed in 3 strides, looming over me. Aren't you? You wear clothes I bought, eat food I provide, sleep in my home, under my protection. You've been mine since the moment I decided to keep you. You can't just decide, I already did. He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that I felt the mattress dip, that his thigh pressed against mine through the blankets. And tomorrow, the council will demand proof that you're worth the controversy you've caused. Fear spiked. What kind of proof? His hand found mine in the darkness, engulfing it, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. That depends on what story we tell them. We could say you're leverage, bait to draw out Alexei if he's still alive. We could claim you're providing information about his operations. Or we tell them the truth I'm beginning to suspect. His voice dropped, rough and intimate. That I'm keeping you because I want to. Because something about you, your defiance, your strength despite everything trying to break you, fascinates me. Because when I look at you, I don't see Alexei Volkov's daughter. I see Alara, and I want her for myself. The confession hung in the air between us, dangerous and intoxicating. My pulse thundered in my ears. You don't even know me, I managed. Don't I? His free hand rose, cupping my face in the darkness. I know you take your coffee black because cream is an unnecessary expense. I know you walk home from work to save bus fare. I know you donated plasma twice a week until it made you too weak to stand your shifts. I know you're alone in this world, fighting battles no one sees, expecting no help, asking for no mercy. Each word landed like a touch. You've been watching me. Yes. No apology, no shame. And what I've seen makes me want to keep watching, to keep you safe, to give you everything you've been denied. I don't want your money. No, you want freedom. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But freedom is an illusion, Ilara. Everyone answers to someone. Everyone is bound by something. The question is, who do you choose to be bound to? Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He pulled away, checking the screen, and his expression went cold. Dmitri just arrived downstairs with 6 men. He's demanding I surrender you for council judgment. Terror flooded through me. What are you going to do? Konstantin stood. All business now. The moment of intimacy shattered. I'm going to show him exactly what happens to people who demand things from me. He moved to the door, then paused. Stay here. No matter what you hear, stay in this room. Wait. But he was gone, and the lock clicked with terrible finality. I disobeyed. The moment Konstantin's footsteps faded, I was at the door, pressing my ear against the wood. Voices drifted up from below, sharp, aggressive Russian punctuated by Konstantin's low, controlled responses. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone, threat, challenge, violence simmering just beneath the surface. Something shattered. Glass. Maybe a vase. A man shouted. Then silence. Thick and terrible. My hand shook as I tried the door handle. Still locked. I scanned the room frantically, searching for anything I could use, any way out. The windows were reinforced, unbreakable. The furniture was too heavy to move. I was trapped, helpless, while men argued over my fate like I was property to be divided. A gunshot cracked through the silence. I froze, hand pressed to my mouth to muffle the scream clawing up my throat. One shot. Then nothing. Just my ragged breathing and the thunder of my pulse in my ears. Minutes crawled past, or hours. Time lost meaning in that room. In the space between the gunshot and knowing who'd fired it, who'd fallen. The lock clicked. Konstantin stood in the doorway, and I'd never been so relieved and terrified to see another human being. His shirt was splattered with blood, fresh, bright red against the gray fabric. A cut split his eyebrow, blood trickling down his temple, but he was alive. Solid. Real. You're hurt, I whispered. Not my blood. Mostly. He stepped inside, closing the door with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with his appearance. I told you to stay away from the door. I heard a gunshot. Yes. He moved to the bathroom, and I followed without thinking. He flipped on the light, wincing slightly at the brightness, and began unbuttoning his ruined shirt. Dmitri made his position clear. I made mine clearer. Is he dead? The question came out smaller than intended. Konstantin met my eyes in the mirror. No. But he understands now that you're not negotiable. He shrugged off the shirt, revealing a torso mapped with scars, some old and faded, others relatively recent. A fresh cut ran along his ribs, still seeping blood. He shot first. I shot better. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from this man who spoke of violence so casually, who stood bleeding in his bathroom like it was Tuesday. Instead, I found myself reaching for the first aid kit under the sink. Of course, there was a first aid kit, probably restocked weekly, and pulling out antiseptic and gauze. Sit, I said, pointing to the closed toilet lid. His eyebrows rose. You're giving me orders now? You're bleeding on your expensive tile. Sit. That almost smile, the one that made my stomach flip. He sat. I knelt between his legs, hyper-aware of how close we were, how the bathroom's intimacy amplified everything. His skin was warm under my fingers as I cleaned the cut on his ribs. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just watched me with those storm-gray eyes that saw too much. You should be running, he said quietly. Dmitri's blood is on my hands, literally, and you're here, playing nurse. Where would I run? I pressed gauze to the wound, perhaps harder than necessary. You've made it clear I'm safest with you, and apparently you just proved it by shooting someone. I proved I'm willing to kill for you. His hand caught my wrist, stilling my movements. Do you understand what that means? I looked up, caught in his gaze. It means you're possessive, territorial. It means you see me as yours, whether I agree or not. Yes. No hesitation, no apology. And it means anyone who tries to take you from me will end up like Dmitri, bleeding and broken, learning exactly how far I'll go. The words should have terrified me. They did terrify me. But underneath the fear, something else stirred, something dangerous and intoxicating. When had anyone ever fought for me? When had anyone cared enough to bleed, to risk their standing in their organization, to shoot a man who threatened my safety? Why? I whispered. Why does it matter so much? I'm nobody. Just a girl who spilled wine in the wrong place at the wrong time. His free hand rose, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. Blood still stained his knuckles, and I should have cared. Should have pulled away. I didn't. You're not nobody, Alara. You're the ghost that's haunted me for 15 years. You're the answer to a question I didn't know I was asking. You're... He stopped, jaw tightening as if the words cost him something. You're mine. And I protect what's mine, even if I don't want to be, especially then. His thumb traced my lower lip and my breath caught. Because wanting you to want this, to want me, is what keeps me civilized. If you truly wanted to leave, if I thought you'd be safe, he leaned closer, his breath warm against my skin. But you don't want to leave, do you, Alara? Not really. The protest died unspoken. Because he was right, and I hated him for seeing it. Somewhere between the fear and the captivity and his impossible protectiveness, something had shifted. I didn't want to return to my 3 jobs, my empty apartment, my invisible existence. Here I was seen. Here I mattered, even if the reason was twisted and wrong. I should want to leave, I said instead. But you don't. He stood abruptly, pulling me up with him, backing me against the bathroom wall. We were so close now I could count his heartbeats in the pulse at his throat. Say it. Tell me you want to stay. I can't. You can. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. 3 words, Alara. That's all I need. And then what? You keep me locked in this penthouse forever? I become your kept woman? Your pretty prisoner? No. His forehead touched mine, and the intimacy of it stole my breath. Then you become my partner, my equal. Someone I trust enough to give freedom because I know you'll choose to stay. That's insane. That's my world. His lips hovered over mine, not quite touching, the space between us charged with electricity. Say it. The moment stretched, taut as a wire. Every rational thought screamed at me to refuse, to maintain my dignity, to remember I was here against my will. But rationality had no place in this bathroom, in this space between one heartbeat and the next. "I want to stay," I whispered. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was possession and promise, hunger and restraint. Everything unsaid between us compressed into one searing moment. His hand tightened in my hair, and I clutched his shoulders, dizzy with the intensity of it, with the way my body responded despite my mind's protests. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "That changes everything," he said, voice rough. "I know." A knock at the bedroom door shattered the moment. Yuri's voice, urgent in Russian. Konstantin answered without looking away from me, his tone sharp. Whatever Yuri said made his expression harden. "The council wants a meeting, now." He released me, stepping back, and the loss of his heat felt like a wound. "They've heard about Dmitri. They want answers." Fear spiked through my chest. "What will you tell them?" "The truth." He grabbed a clean shirt from the closet, shrugging it on despite the bandage I'd just applied. "That you're under my personal protection. That anyone who challenges that challenges me directly. That Dmitri learned this lesson the hard way, and I'm happy to provide additional demonstrations. They'll kill you for defying them." He paused, fingers on his buttons, and something softened in his expression. "You're worried about me. I'm worried about being handed over to someone worse than you, liar." But he smiled, quick and genuine. "Stay here. Yuri will guard the door. I'll return before dawn. And if you don't?" He crossed to me in 2 strides, kissing me again, harder this time, more desperate. "Then you run. Yuri will have instructions, money, documents. You disappear. Change your name, live the quiet life you wanted. Konstantin, promise me. If I don't come back, you run." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. He left, and the silence he left behind felt different now. Heavier. I sank onto the bed, fingers touching my lips, tasting him still. What had I done? I'd just promised to stay with a man who'd kidnapped me, shot someone for me, kissed me like I was oxygen and he was drowning. And the worst part? I meant it. Hours passed. I tried to sleep but couldn't, too wired, too aware of every sound in the penthouse. Yuri stood outside my door, silent as a statue. Through the windows, Chicago's lights gradually dimmed as night deepened toward morning. At 4 a.m., I heard the elevator. I was at the door immediately, ear pressed to the wood. Footsteps, multiple sets. Voices speaking Russian, tense but controlled. Then Konstantin's voice, tired but alive, giving orders. The lock clicked. He stood there looking exhausted, blood cleaned from his face, but his eyes haunted. Behind him, 3 men I didn't recognize, all in expensive suits, all wearing expressions of wary respect. "Ilara," Konstantin said, and his voice held something I hadn't heard before. Relief. "The council has made their decision. Come. There's someone you need to meet." I followed him to the living room, acutely aware of the other men's eyes tracking my every movement. They arranged themselves like pieces on a chessboard, strategic, deliberate, dangerous. An older man sat in Konstantin's chair, silver hair immaculate, eyes the color of winter ice. He studied me with the intensity of someone appraising expensive merchandise. "So?" he said in heavily accented English. "This is Alexei Volkov's daughter." I lifted my chin, refusing to show fear. "Yes." "You look like him. Same eyes, same defiance." He gestured to the sofa. "Sit, child. We have much to discuss about your future." Konstantin moved beside me, his hand finding the small of my back. A gesture of support, of ownership, of warning to the others. "Victor is head of the council. Whatever he says, you answer honestly. Do you understand?" I nodded, sitting because my legs threatened to give out. Victor's gaze never left my face. "Your father stole from us, betrayed us. caused the death of good men. He leaned forward, clasping his hands. Normally, blood debt demands blood payment. Dmitri argued for your execution. Others suggested alternative uses for a young woman in your position. Bile rose in my throat, but Konstantin made a compelling case for a different solution. Victor's lips curved, though it wasn't quite a smile. He claims you are valuable not as punishment, but as redemption. That through you, the Volkov name can be restored to honor within our organization. I don't understand, I whispered. He wants to marry you. The words hung in the air like smoke. I turned to Konstantin, searching his face for confirmation, for denial, for any sign this was another manipulation. His expression remained neutral, controlled, but his hand tightened slightly on my back. Marriage would settle the blood debt. Victor continued. Your children would carry both Volkov and Konstantin blood, uniting two families, erasing the stain of your father's betrayal. It's elegant, really, and it solves Konstantin's problem of how to keep you without appearing weak. This is insane, I managed. You can't just... People don't. In our world, they do. Victor stood, adjusting his cuffs. You have 48 hours to decide. Accept Konstantin's proposal, and you live as his wife, with all the protection and privileges that entails. Refuse, and we release you to settle your father's debt in the traditional manner. He moved toward the elevator, his men following. At the doors, he turned back. Choose wisely, Miss Volkov. Konstantin is hard, but he's fair. And he's already shown he'll kill to keep you. Not many women can claim such devotion. The penthouse felt different in the hours after Victor's departure, smaller, somehow, despite its sprawling luxury, or perhaps I was simply more aware of the walls, of the choice that had been handed to me like a beautifully wrapped grenade, marriage or death. Konstantin stood at the windows, silhouette dark against the pre-dawn sky. He hadn't spoken since the council left, hadn't looked at me, and the silence stretched between us like wire ready to snap. You should have told me, I said finally. Would it have changed anything? He turned, and exhaustion lined his face, not physical, but something deeper. You still would have had to choose. I could have prepared. I stopped, because what could I have done? Run? Hide? Pretend this nightmare would resolve itself without my participation? Could have what, Alara? He crossed to the bar, poured vodka with steady hands despite everything. Could have convinced yourself you had more options than you do? That's a kindness I won't give you. False hope is crueler than honest truth. I watched him drink, watched the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened. This man who'd shot someone for me hours ago now looked almost vulnerable in the gray light filtering through the windows. Did you mean it? The question escaped before I could stop it. The proposal, or is it just another cage with prettier bars? His laugh was bitter. You think I'd fabricate a marriage proposal to satisfy the council? I could have claimed you as a mistress, a prisoner, a dozen other things. Marriage binds me as much as it binds you. Then why? He set down his glass with careful precision. Because when Victor suggested execution, I understood something I'd been avoiding. The thought of you dead, of your blood on someone else's hands because I couldn't protect you. His voice roughened. It was unacceptable, not because of your father, not because of debt or revenge or any rational reason, but because somewhere between kidnapping you and kissing you, you became mine in a way I wasn't prepared for. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's not love. That's obsession. I know. He moved closer, each step deliberate. I know exactly what this is. I'm not a good man, Alara. I've done terrible things, will do more terrible things, but I'm honest about what I am. Can you say the same? What's that supposed to mean? It means you've been lying to yourself since the moment I took you. He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You tell yourself you're here against your will, that you want to leave, that this is all captivity and coercion. But I've seen the way you look at me. I felt the way you respond when I touch you. You're terrified, yes, but you're also alive in a way you haven't been in years. That's not true? His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. Then tell me to stop. Tell me you feel nothing. Tell me that when I kissed you, your world didn't shift on its axis the way mine did. I couldn't. The words stuck in my throat, blocked by truth I wasn't ready to admit. I thought so. He released me, stepping back, and the loss of contact felt like abandonment. So here's your choice, laid bare. Marry me, and I'll give you everything. Safety, yes. Luxury, obviously. But more than that, I'll give you purpose. You'll stand beside me, not behind me. You'll be my partner. My equal in all things except the violence you'll never have to participate in. You'll matter, Alara. Not as someone's daughter, not as an invisible server, but as yourself. And if I refuse, his expression went cold, then I'll let you go, and the council will do what they do. You'll have perhaps 12 hours of freedom before someone collects the blood debt. It won't be quick, and it won't be painless, and I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I could have prevented it but respected your choice instead. The weight of it pressed down like physical force. This wasn't a fairy tale. There was no rescue, no third option, no magical escape, just two paths, one leading to certain death, the other to an uncertain future, with a dangerous man who looked at me like I was salvation and damnation in equal measure. 48 hours, I said quietly. Victor gave me 48 hours. You don't need them. Constantine moved to his desk, opened a drawer, and extracted a small velvet box. He returned, opening it to reveal a ring that stole my breath, a deep green emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum that caught the growing light. This was my grandmother's. She gave it to my mother, who was supposed to give it to my wife. But my mother died when I was 16, and I've kept it locked away ever since. He took my hand, and I didn't pull away. I'm not asking you to love me, Alara. I'm not even asking you to trust me yet. I'm asking you to choose life. Choose the chance to become more than you were. Choose me, and I swear on my brother's grave that I'll spend every day proving you made the right decision. The ring felt cool against my palm, heavy with history and expectation. I looked at it, then at him, then at the windows where dawn was breaking over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. If I say yes, I began slowly, things change. I'm not a prisoner anymore. I'm not locked in this penthouse, not followed everywhere, not treated like property. Agreed. And I want to do something. Work, maybe. Or study. Something that's mine, that you can't control. His lips twitched. Negotiating already. My grandmother would have liked you, he sobered. Yes. Whatever you want to do, I'll support it, within reason. I can't have my wife working night shifts in dangerous neighborhoods, but a business, education, charity work, whatever drives you. And you stop lying to me. No more secrets about who you are or what you do. I won't be shielded like a child. That one's harder. He considered, weighing something internal. I'll tell you everything that doesn't put you in additional danger. Some things are better left unknown. Not to protect my interests, but to protect you. Can you accept that? I thought about it. About all the things I'd learned in the past few days. All the violence I'd glimpsed. Did I really want to know every detail of his business? Every death he'd ordered? Every crime committed in his name? As long as you never lie directly to my face, I said. Omission I can handle. Lies, I can't. Deal. He held out his hand, formal, like we were closing a business arrangement. In a way, I supposed we were. Anything else? Just one thing. I took his hand, but didn't shake it. Instead, I pulled him closer. Close enough to see the silver in his gray eyes, the faint scar on his chin, the exact moment surprise registered on his face. If we're doing this, if I'm choosing to stay, choosing you, then you need to understand something too. What's that? I'm not the helpless girl you kidnapped from Romano's anymore. You've woken something up in me, Constantine. Something that's been sleeping for too long. So if you expect a docile wife who asks no questions and causes no trouble, you've made a terrible mistake. His smile was slow, genuine, beautiful, good. Docile would bore me within a week. He pulled me against him, ring box still pressed between our hands. Say it. Say you'll marry me. I looked at the ring, at his face, at the dawn breaking behind him. Somewhere out there, my old life waited. Empty apartment, unpaid bills, triple shifts, invisible existence. It would be easy to mourn it, to pretend I was giving up something precious. But I'd be lying. Yes, I whispered. I'll marry you. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and when he slid the ring onto my finger, it fit perfectly. Like it had been waiting for me all along, like everything. The spilled wine, the council meeting, even my father's ancient betrayal had been leading to this moment. 3 months later, I stood in a different penthouse, this one ours, purchased together, decorated with my input and his money. Constantine had been true to his word. I wasn't a prisoner. I came and went with security, yes, but freedom within the constraints of his world. I'd enrolled in business classes at Northwestern, started a foundation for children of incarcerated parents, found purpose in places I'd never thought to look. The wedding had been small, private, attended only by the council and a handful of Constantine's most trusted associates. Victor had given me away, ironic, considering he'd been ready to order my execution weeks before. But in this world, pragmatism trumped sentiment. I was useful now. Valuable. A bridge between old grudges and new alliances. I'd learned the truth about my father in those months. Constantine had investigators track down what really happened. Alexei hadn't just stolen money and forged documents. He'd been working with the FBI, selling information, setting up elaborate stings. Sergei's death hadn't been intentional, but it had been the consequence of Alexei's choices. And when it all fell apart, when his cover was blown, he'd run. Abandoned his family to clean up the mess he'd created. Learning that had hurt worse than not knowing. But it also freed me. I wasn't responsible for his sins. I was just responsible for my own choices going forward. You're thinking too hard again. I turned from the window to find Constantine watching me, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. 3 months of marriage had softened some of his harder edges, though he was still dangerous, still ruthless when necessary. But with me, he was different. Gentle, almost tender. Just remembering, I said. The restaurant? He crossed to me, arms sliding around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. The wine you spilled that changed everything? I was thinking about what you said that first night. I just want to leave. And you laughed. I did. His breath warmed my neck, because I knew even then you wouldn't. That something was pulling us together, fate or chance or whatever you want to call it. You're surprisingly romantic for a Mafia boss. Only with you. He turned me in his arms, and the love in his eyes still surprised me. Genuine, fierce, completely unexpected, only ever with you. I kissed him, tasting coffee and contentment, and somewhere in the background, my phone buzzed with a message from my professor, my new friend from class, my life that was mine, and real, and full. I need to go, I said against his lips. Study group in an hour. Yuri will drive you. I know. I pulled back, straightening his collar out of habit. Will you be home for dinner? Wouldn't miss it. Victor's coming by after, some business with the ports, nothing you need to worry about. There it was, the omission, the line between his world and mine that we'd agreed to maintain. I nodded, accepting it, because I'd learned that some knowledge came with too high a price. Be careful, I said. Because despite everything, the worry never quite left. This world was dangerous, and Constantine had enemies who would love to hurt him through me, always. He kissed my forehead, my nose, my lips. Go. Learn things. Make me proud. I grabbed my bag and headed for the elevator. Yuri materializing from wherever he lurked to accompany me. At the doors, I turned back. Constantine stood framed by the windows, Chicago spreading out behind him, looking every inch the powerful man he was. Hey, I called. He looked up. I love you. His smile could have lit the city, I know. Now go, or you'll be late. The elevator descended, carrying me toward my afternoon, my education, my future. And as the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the polished metal. Designer clothes, confident posture, emerald ring catching the light, the girl who'd spilled wine and changed her fate. I'd chosen this life, chosen him, chosen to transform captivity into partnership, fear into something that resembled love. And standing there, watching Chicago rush past through tinted windows, I realized I'd choose it again, every single time, Because sometimes the cage breaks open from the inside, sometimes the prisoner becomes the queen. And sometimes the most dangerous man in the city looks at you like you're the only thing worth protecting in his entire violent, complicated world. I'd wanted to leave that night in the restaurant, exhausted and invisible, and drowning in my own life. Now, I was exactly where I belonged, home.